going to be doing to fully address some of the town comments we already received.
Okay, please go ahead and let us know.
Okay, I'm going to give a very, very brief history of how this project jives with the previous project we had here. And Rob, if you could put up that original planting plan from the prior approval.
Sure.
Okay.
One second. Whoops, wrong one. Sorry. Can you
Yep,
see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, we can see it, Rob.
All right,
So
I got the
this back in February of 2019, the commission approved a project to renovate the filling station. It had been a filling station for decades. It was very out of date, and there was a DEP requirement that the underground storage tanks be replaced. So as part of that project, the convenience store was rebuilt, and the fueling positions in the front of the store were completely renovated. What I want to point out is what that approval involved, and Rob, maybe you could show where that that swale is, the drainage swale.
The one over here?
No, the one over that goes down towards the wetlands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in order to construct the project, we had a disturbance of a couple hundred square feet in that area, but it remained vegetated. I also want to indicate that you'll see, Rob, you can show where the 3 trees are over on the north side of the property that had to be removed.
These guys?
Over by
here.
the,
Yep.
yeah.
Got
So we
it.
had to remove 3 trees there. And we also had to remove 2 trees to the east and 3 additional trees sort of to the southeast. But you can see what you have here on this plan is the planting plan that was approved. And if you look over at the north side, you can see we removed 8 trees, but we installed 9 new trees. And that included red maples, black gums, red oaks, sugar maples, and crabapple. We also planted several shrubs. The wetlands were cleaned out at that time. There were mattresses and things in it. And we also provided a bunch of habitat plantings in the wetlands area. So you can just wanted to kind of point that out. And if you look behind the building in the shaded area, Rob, you can just show where that shaded area is. That was the sloped area, and that is where the current drive-through is proposed to be located. So, Rob, if you could put up the current survey.
Yes. Whoops, there we go.
Okay, so this is you can see it reflects the layout that we just discussed. And you can see the as-built shows all the proposed trees from the prior project were installed. You can see also behind the building the slope. And Rob, maybe you could just trace the wetlands line so everyone knows where the wetlands line is behind the building.
Sure.
Oh, you probably just run over it with your cursor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Here, hold on. I was trying to get at the markup on here, but now my computer seems to be lagging.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the wetlands line it's actually not the wetland flags aren't shown on this one, but it's in
but you see the line right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, why don't you just trace back through that wetlands line, and you can see it's right at the toe of the slope. And if you go now to our layout plan. Okay, so this is the layout plan, and this shows the proposed drive-through. You could see over on the south side where we've got that dimension labeled 12 feet. That would be the entrance to the drive-through lane. And then we're making it the minimum width allowed by zoning. and cars would enter, go to the left, access the drive-through window on the north side of the rear of the building, and then they can exit. The only new construction on the site is directly behind the building. And as I mentioned, it's primarily on that already filled slope. We're going to have to create a retaining wall, which is shown here hatched. That'll allow us to construct the drive-through at the level of the building. And Rob, why don't you point out I guess it's a total of 9 trees that would need to be removed in order to construct the drive-through. There's a cluster where the car is drawn there, labeled number 5.
Yeah, here's 4 here, and then 3 right along the edge of the proposed retaining wall, and then additional 2 right over here.
Yeah.
An 18-inch and a 15-inch tree.
Yeah, and also, Rob, why don't you indicate where we have that 390 square feet of wetlands, which would be disturbed by the drive-through construction?
Sure. So the permanent disturbance is right over here. It's where that existing swale is.
Yeah, and then we have a 270 square feet of temporary disturbance, just so we can create a 5-foot area beyond the retaining wall in order to construct it. What we're proposing for mitigation is to create a wetlands replication area. Rob, you could point that out up in the that 300 square foot replication area.
Yeah, that's right here.
Yeah. And also, if you go to the planting plan, we can show that, as I mentioned, we're removing 9 trees in order to construct the project.
Sorry, bear with me here. There we go.
Yeah. So up by that replication area that I just mentioned, you can see we're going to be proposing 10 new trees. So that's the basics of the project. And like I mentioned, we have some things we've been doing to make sure we address all the town comments. So I'd like to go through those. The first comment is about floodplain storage. We are in a floodplain. And so the way we can maintain floodplain storage is by using a box culvert system to create the structure underneath the retaining wall or underneath the drive-through lane. So Rob, could you put up just a sample? I have an image of a box culvert that I think will help illustrate what we're talking about. So if you can imagine,
right?
Yeah, if you can imagine, you could take a couple of these box culverts, as we've shown here, and they go underneath the drive-through lane. They provide the structure for the drive-through lane, but they leave void space underneath it, which allows us to maintain our flood storage. And as you can see, on top of the box culverts, you can install your drive surface, you can install your fence and your guardrails. So that's how we're proposing to maintain our flood storage. And the reason we haven't been able to provide a complete set of plans with the box culverts on it is we're working with several different vendors to select the best box culvert system and work up a construction sequence. So we'll be able to demonstrate that we can install these without impacting the wetlands beyond what is in our application. There was another question about wetlands compensation and attempting to get up to a 2-to-1 ratio. So Rob, if you could put our revision 2 layout up.
There we go.
Yeah, so this is the revision we're working on, and up in the northeast corner, we're able to expand that proposed compensation area and get 430 square feet. So Rob, if you could just point that out.
Yeah, it's right over here.
Yeah, and then also we've identified another location over on the south side where we can add an additional 400 square feet. So we have a 390 square foot disturbance, and with those 2 compensation areas, we're able to exceed the 2-to-1 ratio for compensation. Another thing I want to point out is in our prior approval, we had 55 square feet of permanent disturbance approved at our drainage outlet. Rob, maybe you could point that out.
That was
No, it's the
referring to-
riprap plunge pool at the riprap.
Oh.
No, right by the wetlands mitigation.
Right
Yeah,
here,
there you
yep.
go. So that low, we had 55 square feet of permanent disturbance approved previously. And by using the box culvert system, we can pull that discharge out of the wetlands. And with the void space, we can now have our discharge underneath the box culverts. So the box culverts will let us maintain our flood storage and also move that permanent disturbance back out of the wetlands. There was also discussion about tree removal. And so in the prior, the application that you have before you right now, there was a small mitigation area at the toe of the slope. Rob, maybe you could call up our grading plan for the current application, then we'll come back to.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look over by Rob, you can point out the grading.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, we had a grading area there because we were trying to create some additional compensation, but by putting the additional compensation towards the south, we can exceed 2-to-1. We don't need that compensation area at the toe of the slope, and that's going to let us preserve a number of existing trees. So Rob, if you go back to the previous drawing. Yeah, and so if you see by the expanded mitigation area, we went out and field located a number of trees, and by not having to do that grading from the toe of the slope, we're able to preserve all those existing trees. There was also a comment about doing compliance with MS4 to the maximum extent practical, and so I just wanted to mention a few things we're doing in that regard. I did go through the MS4, general permit requirements, and some of the things we're doing, of course, is we'll have a full construction phase, erosion and sedimentation control plan with an operation and maintenance plan. And as I mentioned, as soon as we can specify the exact box culverts we're using, we can provide an operation or a construction sequence that'll show how we're going to stabilize the soil, how we can position equipment and set these box culverts without any additional wetlands disturbance. So that's a detail we're currently working out, and we'll provide that information. From a post-construction MS4 standpoint, the drive-through is going to be constructed of concrete. That is to create a lighter color rather than asphalt, which will reduce thermal effects. Also, as recommended by MS4, we're not going to have any direct discharges to the water bodies. The runoff will surface flow off of the concrete, and it'll go through our prior LID drainage system over to our water quality basin, and it'll be settled, filtered, and cooled before it is discharged to any water body. Some additional, MS4 criteria. We'll be providing tree protection for any trees to remain. And as I mentioned, any trees that are being removed are being replaced, actually being replaced plus one additional tree. The native soils will be reused. In the temporary disturbance area, to avoid compaction of those soils, we'll excavate the existing wetland soils, stockpile them, and save them for reuse. In the area where we are going to be doing seeding, we're going to go with a meadow seed mix. That should reduce the amount of mowing and maintenance and fertilizer, which is also a recommended MS4 criteria. The drive-through will have a fence above the guardrail, which will prevent debris and trash from blowing into the wetlands. especially after the owner already just cleaned it up. And of course, after the project is completed, there would be a long-term operation and maintenance plan in effect. So that's the summary. As I mentioned, we have some details to work out. We'd like the opportunity to incorporate those into the plans and provide those updated documents, which we believe we can provide within a week or so.
Okay. Just on the side note, to Eileen, that Commissioner Desai had to leave the meeting at 6:19, if that could be recorded. He's having internet issues. All right, with that, I'm going to ask if there's any of the commissioners that have any new questions or comments.
I'm not on mute.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
Bob, did you distribute that map that we did?
The compilation map that was part of the packet, I did send a copy also to the applicant.
All right. Okay, I'm
They
gonna see if I
got
I'm gonna
it.
see if I can get it up on the screen. This was something that was asked by the commission.
You want me to share it? I have it on.
You have it? Yeah, you can share it.
I can absolutely share it. Sure
Yeah.
thing. That was the impact sketch
Yep.
plan.
Yeah.
This one, right?
So yeah, this is done with fancy AutoCAD called highlighters. And I think it was Commissioner O'Connor who asked to see this, but what you have here is the bold red magic marker is the original store, and the green is the original tree line prior to any work being done. And then of course the blue is your flagged wetlands, and then the yellow is what would be disturbed totally once we're done. So it's, it gives you a before from a couple years ago and now kind of where they'll be. Of course, as Mark said, they're changing a little bit on that northern end, but it's going to be similar. So just to give you an idea of impact, it's just for reference. As I said, one of the commissioners asked for it, so we compiled it for you.
Yeah, I would like to just, if you don't mind, make a couple comments. One, you've already hit upon, which is over on the northeast side where this had all that grading. We've sort of changed our strategy here and eliminated a lot of that grading, which I think is going to help a lot. The other thing I want to indicate is, although the surveyor showed that northern tree line, you see that, Rob, maybe you could kind of point out that big green area. I just want to show you real quick what that actually looked like. It was kind of unfortunate. The surveyor called it a tree line. So Rob, yeah, if you could go to those three images. Okay,
All
so
right.
this is looking north. So where they showed the tree line, it was actually these overgrown shrubs. And the three trees that were to be removed are shown there in the image. They were not healthy, they were broken, and they were covered with vines. And so, Rob, maybe you go to the next image. So you can see it's not really a tree line. And if you go to the third image,
there you go.
It was more of a lawn, shrubs with some fairly damaged trees. I will note that where that shopping cart is in the image, that was the start of that man-made swale that heads down to the drainage area. But I understand entirely. If you looked at the survey, you certainly would have mapped out the tree line where the green line is shown, because that's exactly where the surveyor had it. But I think he took some poetic license. So I just wanted to make sure that the commissioners understood that we didn't essentially clear cut a quarter acre of forest there. We were renovating. We were removing 3 trees that were not in the best of condition. We installed a water quality basin and 9 new healthy trees, along with habitat plantings and a LID filter strip. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point in case, because it's been a while since the original project. So I wanted to point that out. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for bringing that up, Steve. All right. So now I think we're ready to start this. Any questions that the commission has, but for the record right now, because Commissioner Mukesh Desai had to leave, Commissioner Liska will be sitting in for him. So let's start with Commissioner Schweitzer, if you have any questions.
Yes, it sounds like you're making some very major changes as far as it concerns this commission. So I think it's going to be very hard to react tonight without seeing those plans. But you're proposing some arches along with the retaining wall along to support your drive-through lane?
Yeah, Rob, maybe it is worth showing the concept sketch from your revision 2. Basically, it's just a different structural system for the drive-through lane. Originally, we were proposing just a solid retaining wall around the whole thing, filling in behind it like you traditionally would. But what we've decided in order to maintain flood storage is, Rob, why don't you just go up to the plan for a second? And I want to show, so what we plan on doing is doing a true retaining wall just for the radius, the radius where you enter, you know, that turn right there. That's not a very tall wall because you're going down the slope. And then also on the exit of the drive-through where you start coming back up to grade, we'll have another fairly low retaining wall. And then where you can see in this concept, Rob, you could show your dash lines that you have there in the plan. Those are where the box culverts would be. You can get them, 8 feet wide open, 8 feet tall, 8 feet wide. We'd probably go with about 16 feet deep, and that would be from what's shown here as the face of the retaining wall back towards the building. And so you just essentially lay down, side by side by side, these boxes which are open to the wetland so water can flow in, but they're traffic rated, and you can put your driving surface on top of it. So Rob, if you go down below now to that section, so what's shown there is a full retaining wall on the left and the right. Those are the radius turns. And then what you see in the center section there are these box culverts side by side. And we could put the driving surface in the fence on top of it. So if you were looking at this from I-91, you're essentially, each one of these arches here would essentially be a cave, an open space where if there were a flood, you needed flood storage, that's where the water would go in.
What's going to sit on the backside of those arches closest to the building? Yeah,
that's where we're still finishing out the design, but you could just have a concrete back on them. And what we're working with vendors now, just to do a little bit of the pre-engineering. We talked to our structural engineer and geotech who helped us with the foundation for the original building. And we're just refining the design to make sure that these box culvert structures don't get any negative impact from the building, and working out the logistics of installing them with the building there. So we are accounting for those things. We just haven't finalized the design yet. And that's why we would like the opportunity to submit a final so that all these questions are answered before we ask you to make a vote.
Okay, now going back, your retaining wall and your culverts here need to be are going to be holding traffic. So do the footings of those or the bottom of your retaining walls and the culverts need to go down to frost?
No, it's not a building. So that they wouldn't need to go down below frost. Matter of fact, virtually all of the modern gravity block retaining walls do not go below frost. And this is something we've been discussing with our geotechnical and structural engineers, is we know we're going to have to stabilize the soils. And so that's where we aired out the issue of how far beyond these would we need to go with, compacted gravel, things that wouldn't be suitable for a wetlands. And we're confident that we can get these installed with a temporary disturbance of 5 feet, and then restore the wetlands right up to the face of them with over a foot of wetlands soil mix.
Okay, and then the offset to the property line on that one corner, you're not going to have an issue. You've got enough clearance to get through there?
Yeah, it's a lot shallower. There's a lot, it's not a real deep cut right there. So yeah, it's going to take, a pre-construction meeting and making sure the property line is prominently flagged. But yes, I'm confident that it can be installed
Okay.
as drawn.
All right. I'm missing a 30 contour on your driveway going around the back. Is there one missing?
Hey, Rob, do you have the grading plan?
Yeah, let me pull that up. A 30 contour, you said on the let's
Entrance
see.
of the driveway, I think.
No, I see one on the back, but I don't see the return on it. Is one missing? Could you just check that?
Yeah, I can
I see
take
it. I see a 29, a 30, and then the next one I see is another 29. And I would expect to see another 30 on the other side.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'd have to, that might be a discrepancy.
So where's that, Rob? Point that out for me, please.
Well, we got 30 contour here.
Right, and that's up
The 30.
above a curb. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know this is the high point.
Yeah, so it may just, but the 30 may just ride the curb and then return back to the building. The 30 up by the trash enclosure.
If you could just check that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we can check
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On your grading and drainage plan, it's pointing to an existing water quality basin in the corner to the south of your entrance drive. Is that just a misplaced call out? I'm on C 2.0. There, you can see it right there. If you go back one. Yeah, you see how you're.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
that-
it looks like,
Yeah,
yeah, it looks
that's
like
leftover, yeah.
So
yeah, because that existing CB2 is that stormwater treatment unit.
Right. What happened was in the original plan, the water quality unit was located right where you see that mislabel, and then it got moved just in anticipation of possibly looking to do a drive-through in the future. So it was shifted over during construction.
okay. All right.
They shifted it during construction. The label didn't go with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Your under drains, do you have proper clearance on your under drains that you're showing at the entrance and the exit based on your elevations? You may need to drop them a little bit deeper.
The under drains for the retaining wall?
Yeah, I'm showing an invert at 27 and you're showing me the,
Yeah, that probably should be a little lower.
okay. And then you have some penetrations with your roof drain. You have a penetration of the retaining wall, and then we'll see what's going to happen with that 12-inch HDPE out the back.
Yeah, we'll have to coordinate that with the, as I mentioned, with the culverts. So what we plan on doing is locating, pulling that pipe back so we can get that riprap out of the wetlands. And we'll be able to put this discharge inside one of those culverts. And also there was some concern or a comment at the last meeting about the roof runoff. And I know some commissioners were not particularly happy about putting it right into our wetlands replication area. So with our final revision, we'll have that roof runoff going to the existing larger water quality basin before it goes to the replication area.
Okay. And again, I'm probably going to second Commissioner Liska's comments with regards to the constructability, especially with those arches. But those were all the questions I have for right now, but I'd like to reserve the right to ask more questions when we do see the final plan.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Schweitzer. Commissioner Liska, do you have anything to add?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, moving on, Commissioner Kelly. Commissioner Kelly, do you have anything?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'm going to hold off until the next meeting, Mr. Chairman, and hear the revisions. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Whelan, do you have anything?
No questions, just some comments. I'm having a hard time grasping this interruption into the wetland area as invasive as it is. I know they're trying to work with it by putting those culverts and whatnot to let the water flow, but there's huge amounts of disruption here, and that's something that we're supposed to be protecting. A comment about the building size was increased from the original building. It was pushed back further. I know it had to be pushed back due to the gas pumps, as we were told last time, but I'm just having a hard time with this whole project at this point. But I mean, I'm going to be willing to listen as it develops further.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Stevens.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I have several questions, a lot of concerns too, but I think some of my concerns may be getting answered here, but I'll just go through them all. The first one was with the project area located within the 100-year flood. And I know that they're now offering these arched box culverts for flood storage compensation, which I like that. That answers, I guess, that question. One of the questions I have is, not only will they provide flood storage, but will they provide wetland creation possibly also, depending on what the bottom of the box culvert elevation is? I'm not sure about that. Maybe you could answer that question, because if that could offer more wetland, creation for mitigation, that is an interesting idea. So that's one of my questions. Getting back to the filling, which is obviously a direct wetland impact. I do normally like to see at least 1-to-1. It's better if you can have 2 to 3 times, wetland creation along with and/or mitigation for the direct wetland impacts of the filling, which I don't think we're quite there yet, unless somehow you can create some more wetlands underneath the culverts, the box culverts. And I understand now that we're moving the roof drainage to the regular detention basin. And then my question would be, if we do that, will the replication area actually function as a wetland that's similar to the wetland that's being filled? Will it have the necessary hydrology to support the wetland plantings? Have you done any testing in there to test pits to see where the hydrology would have, what elevations you'd have to set that at to make sure that it actually will function as a wetland and support those wetland plantings that you're proposing? And then and obviously I'm also very concerned about the steep fill slope, located, right on or even in the wetland in this case. So yeah, I still have a lot of concerns. but if we could possibly do some more wetland creation and give me some assurance that your wetland replication area is going to actually work, and be something that's similar to the wetlands that we are impacting or filling, direct impacts. Just kind of need a little bit more assurance there. I think that's about all I have right now. I'll probably have other questions as we go along, but sort of similar to what I was, questioning previously at the last meeting.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
didn't know if there were any more commissioner comments because I could address a few of those.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, okay. Rob, it's probably worth putting up the revision plan that we're working on. Yeah, so the direct impact we have right now is 309, or Rob, probably drop it down just a hair so I can read the numbers. Yeah, lower.
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
Oh, you just lower, or just lower it, just drag it down the screen.
Well, right there, there's the
Yeah,
impact.
now I need bifocals to read it. But we've got 390 square feet of direct disturbance, and we're increasing versus the plans that you have. One of our revisions is going to be to increase the northern wetlands replication to 430 square feet, and then add an additional, which is not shown on your plan at this time, 400 square feet down to the south. So that comes out to 2.1 ratio, which is a lot better, than we have right now. So that revision will get us over the 2 to 1. I had also thought about the under the culverts maybe being a wetlands area. And I'll talk to our soil scientist about that, but I guess I was thinking it's just going to be very dark in there. There's really won't get a lot of sunlight, so I wasn't sure how that would work. So I want to talk to her about that. And regarding whether the replication area will work, what we found, we noticed during construction, we have very, very silty soils. And so I've been monitoring the water quality basin, and actually it doesn't drain quickly enough. We like to get them to drain, 24, 48 hours. It's tending to hold water right now. So we're going to put in I've done this at some other locations to make a predictable drawdown time. You can put stone in the bottom with a perforated pipe, you put an orifice on it, and we can use that to feed the wetlands replication area to make sure it gets the water that it wants. And it also will help us get that water quality basin to draw down in a reasonable time frame. We knew we would be coming back next month. So we're going to finish up our revisions, and I'll be sure that Kate Bednaz, our soil scientist, can discuss the viability of the replication area for you.
I might just, through the chairman, I might just add that previously you were going to put roof drainage into the wetland replication area to try to maintain or create that hydrology, I believe. And that probably had a lower amount of contaminants associated with it. I'd be probably, check with your soil scientist, but the hydrology that may be in your detention basin, that's coming from actual storm drainage. So I don't know what the quality of that water would be to put in your wetland replication area.
Well, we have a filter strip at the edge of the parking lot, a vegetated filter strip, and the water wouldn't reach the wetlands until it had already filtered through the filter strip, settled, and been infiltrated through the stone and the perforated pipe. And that's basically the treatment it would have before going into the replication area. But once again, that's something that I've noted, and I'll make sure that we pass that along to Kate, and she can provide you with some information on that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the wetland replication area isn't going to be considered part of the storm drainage system, because then you're not really able to count that as mitigation. If it becomes more of a storm drainage, water quality basin or something, so that's all I have for now.
Well, I was also going to mention that there is no fill slope with this project. The prior project, maybe show the as-built survey.
Sure.
Yeah, so this is the as-built survey, and
This isn't, hold on.
Oh.
Hold on.
Okay,
Yeah,
there's the
it's-
as-built survey, and so you can see that those contours in back, that slope is already there, and that's essentially where we would have to remove some of that slope, and that's where we would put our box culverts in. And so this particular phase of the project won't require any steep slopes.
Okay. Moving on, Commissioner Zach, do you have any questions?
Not right now. I have to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Whalen that there's just a lot of disruption of the wetlands, and need to see some more revisions on this. So I reserve to ask questions next month once we get the revisions.
Okay. Commissioner O'Connor.
Good evening. Yeah, I just have a few comments. I'm very concerned with the wetlands disturbance on this plan here. I mean, phase one, it was not too bad, but I'm very concerned with the wetlands protection of it. Seems like we're pulling soils up, and some of the presentation is we're going to take up soil and we'll just replace it somewhere else. And I don't believe that's the charge of us as a wetlands commission, but I'll reserve my other comments till I see what they do come up with solutions to address some of these concerns that everybody's voicing right now. But it is a very large disturbance factor on this next phase.
I'm sorry, is it okay if I was just going to make a comment about,
Yes, Mr. Smith.
yeah, the soil I was talking about removing was going to be in the temporary disturbance area. We were going to remove it, put it aside so it wouldn't get compacted, and then put it back in the same location.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand that, but there's an ecosystem that's in that wetland system, and we've already disturbed it. Wasn't too bad of a disturbance, and I appreciate your photos because I am familiar with that situation down there and how that was, and that was a good rendition. What you did, bringing that forward to inform people who possibly were not effective, thought that was a shrub line, and it was just those trees and stuff. That was a very good point to bring across to the commissioners that maybe did not know the history of that land. But it does draw me a large concern on this the culvert. I mean, your culvert dams. I'm familiar with those systems, and it just brings me into daylight, sunlight. I mean, that's what makes the ecosystem move inside the wetlands, and those things are just concerning to me. But I'm very interested to see what your course of action is going to be on these things to make it try to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that leaves me, and I have no questions at this point. So I believe that we have finished part 3A, the public hearing. Do we need a vote to close the public hearing, or can we just move on to section B?
You don't want to close it, Mr. Chairman. You want to recess the public hearing to the March 10th meeting.
Okay. So can I get a motion to recess this public hearing until the March meeting?
I'll make a motion to recess the public hearing for Abdullah Enterprises LLC and to be continued at the March 2021 meeting.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second,
All those in favor? Just verbal aye. Any opposed? All right, so that part of the public hearing is recessed. I'm going to open next. We're going to open part B of the public hearing. Commissioner Kelly, if you could read section 2 of the town notice of public hearing.
Make sure I'm not muted. Okay, so the Open Space and Conservation Commission, acting as Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency for the town of Rocky Hill, has scheduled public hearings on Wednesday, February 10th, 2021 at 6 o'clock for in addition to the one we just heard, for the application for a permit, Commercial Services Realty, proposed placement of soil, a fill permit, to be located at 581 Cromwell Avenue, Assessors ID number 12-138 for Wednesday, February 10, 2021, immediately following the 6 p.m. first public hearing, a virtual meeting. At this hearing, all interested persons may be heard and written communications received. A copy of the plan and related documents are open for inspection in the office of the town engineer and the town clerk in the Rocky Hill Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, if I can just add to it, we have regarding this public hearing, we do have some people that are listening and that would like to speak on this item here. I just wanted to, I sent an outline as far as proposing conducting this public hearing, and I just want to say for the record of this public hearing that the purpose of the public hearing is, of course, to take testimony to be considered in deliberations of once that public hearing is closed. And this public hearing is basically dealing with the environmental issues as it relates to wetlands and water courses at 581 Cromwell Avenue. I know that some of the other abutters have expressed concerns with other issues that might not be environmentally related. So I just want to emphasize that. Also, I was suggesting that if you want to have a structured meeting or public hearing, that we have the applicant's presentation, that we then have the questions by the committee like you did before, and then questions by the public if the public is to be engaged in this public hearing. Then we have some communications for and against the proposal, speakers for the proposal, and then the rebuttal by the applicant. And then final questions by the committee, or the commission rather, and then either a motion to close or to recess the public hearing. And that way, it will be somewhat of a cleaner process, if you will, if you agree with it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Scott Stevens. I want to just let you know I have to recuse myself from being a commissioner to review this, since I'm the sole scientist that actually delineated the wetland on the property, so I'm working for the applicant.
Yeah, yes, thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner O'Connor, you will be sitting in for Commissioner Stevens. If I can talk to staff again, Bob, you want to start with the presentation, or
let's do the presentation by the applicant, go through the presentation, and then the questions by the committee, just like you did before. But like I said, however, you'll have people in the audience that might be interested in asking questions. So we'll let the people in the audience also ask questions or express their concerns or express their whatever views they have on this, and then have communications for or against the proposal, and then the rebuttal by the applicant, and then final questions by you guys.
I just want to verify that you're suggesting that we do not have the members of the public speak first.
No. Let's do the presentation first.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, as Bob was saying, to keep on point with the environmental issues, I know there's going to be a lot of questions regarding traffic lights and such. That is not the purview here, and it's something that they won't be answering.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, that is correct. And I will also remind the public, this application before us involved bringing in soil to fill the area on the application and level the site. Talking about things like future parking lot lights, buildings blocking views or anything is not part of this application. This application is strictly to bring in truckloads of soil in such a way, in however it is to retain the soil. And that's really the limit of what the Inland Wetlands Commission is here for, to make sure that as minimal impact, if no impact at all, is possible. So with that, I would like to open up with a presentation from Commercial Services Realty, proposed placement of soil fill permit to be located at 581 Cromwell Ave, Assessor's ID 12-138.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, even though the screen says my name is Peter Diadio, it is not. My name is Peter Alter. I'm an attorney. I practice law in Glastonbury in the firm of Alter and Pearson, and I am representing the applicant in this application. You will also hear from John Mills, our professional project engineer, Scott Stevens, who has done the soil science work on this project, and Mr. Diadio, who is directly involved with commercial services, is also here and can answer questions, operational questions, if any come up, either from the commission or from the public. I appreciate Mr. Alvarado's and Mr. Sopelek's comments, and we will certainly make every effort to stay on task with respect to this wetlands application. John, could you put the basic site plan up first for a minute, please?
Confirmed. Can you see the screen, commissioners?
There you go. Thank you. This property is, as shown on the plan, it consists of about 3 acres. It is bounded on the north is to the top of this plan by Rhodes Road, to the east by Cromwell Avenue, Connecticut Route 3, to the west by condominium complex known as Rhodes Landing, and then to the south by other property. First, the wetlands is both on this property and on the next property, and then development beyond that. As the chairman indicated, the proposal before you tonight is to allow the applicant to fill the property to prepare it for development. This process, if we were able to secure a permit from this commission, we would move to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a fill permit. Once that filling effort was completed, we would come back to both this commission and to the Planning and Zoning Commission with a development plan for the site. Because our activities will involve the upland review area within 100 feet of the wetland, the subsequent development after the fill activity will also be subject to this commission's jurisdiction. So sort of in support of what both Mr. Sopelek and Mr. Alvarado said, there will be at least 2 opportunities at the Planning and Zoning Commission level to raise non-environmental issues if people are so inclined. John, you want to put up the 2009 plan now, please? To refresh everyone's recollection, I think some of the members who were on the commission in 2009. This agency, John, do you have that plan? Thank you.
Yes, can you see the screen?
Yep, it's good. This agency issued a wetlands permit for the development that you see on the screen now. This is a plan that was approved not only by this agency acting in your wetlands capacity, but also by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It so happened that it has not been built. It was not built for reasons and factors that had nothing to do with the site, but rather more the general economy. This plan that you see before you contemplated generally the same level of activity that we propose. Frankly, we think that this plan was more active than the plan that we think we will come forward with ultimately. This contemplated about an 11,500 square foot building with a drive-through opportunity for a bank, plus a retail facility, about 74 parking spaces as well, as some substantial grading in the upland review area, which is shown on the southerly or lower part of the plan that you see now. The plan that we present, not only for filling, but also in the ultimate development of this property, contemplates no disturbance, none whatsoever, of the identified wetland areas adjacent to this site. So we don't have any direct wetland impacts in terms of activities within the identified wetland areas. We do have activity within the upland review area, and we'll talk about that tonight. You can see the 100-foot upland review boundary is shown on this plan, and it can give you some perspective as to our plan if you keep this in mind when we show you the fill plan that we have in terms of the activity that is to occur within that upland review area. I want to point out one other interesting item. Before either of these plans, the site was developed as a residential property. And if you look closely in the lower left-hand corner of the plan, there was a large garage and storage building that existed obviously well within the 100-foot upland review area. There was also a house that existed within the upland review area as well. And those buildings have been removed, and the foundations will be removed as part of this project, so that those intrusions into the upland review area will be eliminated. John, if you could go to no, this plan works. You can leave this one up. This is fine. The wetland configuration has been field located based on first the 2009 plan and then updated. Mr. Stevens will talk about that in a couple of minutes. But our proposal contemplates no activity in the wetland, activity within the upland review area, as shown on the plan, which is principally grading and the construction of a retaining wall to allow us to put the fill on the site in order to get the site level for development. John, we lost the plan, or at least I did. I don't know what happened. Did we lose John? I'll keep going. John, are you still with us? There you are. You're muted, John. Thank you. John, as our project engineer, has had the benefit of comments from your staff. Mr. Sopolik provided an extensive review of the project with some requests for changes to the plan. John's going to go over that in some detail. We have a very detailed erosion sedimentation control plan, which he and Scott will both discuss, and also address some of the other issues that Mr. Sopolik raised. So with that, John, if you could bring the commission through the plan in terms of erosion, sedimentation control, stormwater management, and the like, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Peter. Commissioners, for the record, John Mills, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. We have benefited greatly from close coordination with Bob and Kim and Steve, your town engineer. And so I'm just going to briefly go through a few of the items based on coordination with them and helpful town comments at this time. First, we'd like to bring your attention to these plans that have been revised, which demonstrate that subsequent to our initial application with a closer examination of the site, rather than 9,500 cubic yards of fill, rather we will be bringing in 5,200 cubic yards of fill. This will significantly reduce, almost an order of magnitude of by half, the amount of trucks and the time it will take to fill the site. Further, we're using best management practices according to Connecticut's 2002 soil erosion and sed control guidelines. So some of the items that we are going to ensure to have in place prior to any construction activity would be such as the construction entrance access drive to the north of the site for trucks coming in and out. And down here, we will be having a temporary sediment trap as the site drains from the north to the south to ensure that any sediment or silts are adequately given time, both for wet and dry storage, to settle out, and they will not adversely impact the wetlands on site. We propose further a silt fencing, double row of silt fencing according to the plans, a wood chip berm to be located, as you can see here, generally following, more than generally following, the prior approved site plan, as you can see here. We made sure to follow the prior approval that was granted by this commission for this fill permit. There will be a retaining wall that we have. Before I get to that, excuse me. One of the comments that we'd received from the commission was regard to cross sections. So we had the designers make sure to demonstrate 3 of these different cross section areas here. So you can see through those different sections going from west to east of the site, where the existing topography of the site would be, where the proposed retaining wall would go, and what the proposed grade would be once the site has been filled. Demonstrating that there would be a nice pad site, stabilized and seated, that would be adequate for a potential use of a building. There would also remain this sediment trap to ensure that before reaching the wetlands down here, all silt had the opportunity to settle and stabilize and wouldn't adversely impact the wetlands to the south. We also provided a construction sequence from a comment that was made, a sequence for construction demonstrating the town zoning enforcement has inspection and approval of all of our best practices prior to the start of construction. In addition to that, just going back to the site plan briefly, we note that this plan, should it meet with the commission's approval, would be submitted to the DOT because we have sediment controls in their right of way. We do have an encroachment permit for the tree clearing as well. In discussions with the town engineer, I provided calculations for the sizing of the sediment trap located here to the south, demonstrating that we have adequate protection for the size of the site and the amount of drainage that would be running off through it. And as Peter Alter mentioned, the wetlands that we see down here that Mr. Stevens has delineated were created by virtue of the construction of the community sitting at the top of the hill here. And these protections that we have in place with a stockpile and with these sediment traps are going to be in place for the fill that is placed here. It's our intention subsequent to or prior to any site plan approval to submit a much more detailed plan that would have plantings and the like for a full site plan approval. So we've considered some of the comments in the cross sections, and we have responded to these comments that were made by different memos back and forth with the town staff, and we've believe we've adequately satisfied those at this time. Any other thoughts? No, at this time, we can introduce our soil scientist, Mr. Stevens, for any further comments that he can have to provide more clarity on the wetland delineation.
Okay, as most of you know, I'm Scott Stevens, registered professional soil scientist with Soil Science and Environmental Services. Our offices are here in Cheshire, or here in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. Previously, before 2013, our offices were located in Cheshire, Connecticut. As was mentioned, previously our firm had delineated the wetlands on the site in 2007. All this information I'm going to be talking about is kind of summarized in a letter that I sent, and I think you all got a copy of it. It's dated February 9th, 2021. But basically back in 2007, for a previous application, Tom Petras from our firm had delineated the wetlands on the site. Most of those original flags are missing along the northern side of the wetland, at least. So what we had Bon Giovanni group go out and they reset our actual flag locations from 2007 so that we could see where the original wetland line was delineated, and then there was a plan that was approved in 2009. So we thought that it was important to have those original wetland flags located on the northern side of the wetland. And basically on last Saturday, February 3rd, I went out and I dug several holes with a spade and auger, looked at the soils, looked at the in the uplands and in the wetlands, reviewed the wetland boundary line. There was basically flags numbers 21 to 36. 21 would be located over near the western side of the property, and 36 is over by Cromwell Avenue. And I reviewed the wetland line, and everything looks substantially correct except for one small area between flags number 27 and 28. I added a wetland flag number 27A, which there's a little bit of an area where that ponds water, and it was very thick vegetation. I think no one was able to get in there originally. And so I placed this new wetland flag 27A, which brings the wetland boundary line up slope about maybe 2 to 3 feet from what was previously delineated back in 2007. And like I said, I looked at the soils on the site, and everything that was in our original soil report from 2007 appeared substantially correct also. I did find some other old wetland flags on the south side of the wetland, and I put some pink flags on those where I found those old blue wetland flags from 2007. I didn't number them because I don't know what numbers they were. I couldn't read the numbers on the old flags, but I did put up about another probably 8 or 10 flags on the southern side of the wetland. So if anybody wants to go out there and see it, they'll see the wetland boundary on the southern side also, but they're not proposing anything on the southern side of the wetland. And other than that, they're not proposing any direct wetland impacts or filling into the wetland for this most recent project. There has been some clearing of trees and probably brush, whatever, in the upland review area, but there, like previous, the engineer said, there are old remains of building stone foundations that are also in the upland review area. So the area has had history of, being utilized, the property's been utilized within that upland review area on that side, on that western side of the site. They will provide some sort of, some wetland mitigation in the form of some wetland planting or some, actually upland plantings, but some plantings in the buffer area, upslope of the wetland. And they'd like to do that after the filling is completed, after the site is kind of stabilized. But we can certainly provide you with a planting plan. And I don't think I think basically the development that's currently being proposed is very similar as far as the impacts to the upland review area, very similar to the 2009 application that was approved by the town. So that's pretty much all I have right now. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes our initial presentation. We're happy to respond to questions or comments that commissioners or the public may have.
All right, I have to take a quick break from this to speak with staff. During your presentation, I was notified that the town council has a special meeting at 7:30, and that in less than 15 minutes, and that they need both this Zoom channel and the TV feed. I was not aware of that, so if staff could fill me in if they knew anything about this.
I didn't know anything about it, Mr. Chairman. I did not. So
That's news to me.
yeah, we were expected to be here for at least 2 hours.
All right, yeah, we're reaching out to the mayor right now to see what's going on. So until the point
Mr.
where
Chair?
Yes.
Todd, if I could, they're having a special meeting due to talk about public safety and the property crimes happening in town.
Okay.
So I don't think she will probably budge.
Okay. So Bob, how should we proceed with this? We can hear from the public briefly if they want to ask questions, or what's your suggestion?
Let's if I would suggest that we do have members of the public that are that would like to speak on this item, and we have roughly 10 minutes or so to do so. So let's get their questions and concerns out of the way, and either close the public hearing or recess it to the next meeting.
Okay, I agree. We give the public, the 6 people from the public, as much chance as possible to speak, with the understanding that in 10 minutes, we will have to just assume that we've closed we've recessed the public hearing.
Let's make it quick because.
Okay, so with that, is there a spokesman of the 6 names I see? Is there a spokesman for the group of people that wish to speak? All right, hearing none, the first name on my list is John Juka. If you have something to say, this would be. All right, on the head of my screen, I see William Orlowski's name. Do you have something to say?
Can you hear me?
Yes. There's a horrific echo there.
There's an echo. John Juka here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can.
Yes, John.
I don't know if Bill was going to speak. I don't know if Bill is here.
But
I
microphone is muted right now.
All right. I know you're short on time. I'll be very short, very quick. I just had a concern on that map, the plot plan there. There was like a storage area that's adjacent to Rhodes Landing residential properties. I don't know how you define that or what goes into that. What is that considered? Do you see it up towards
Right.
where the tree line is? Yeah.
Yeah, way in back.
The one that's in back, it borders the Rhodes Landing condominium residential area. I was
Right.
just curious. It may or may not
Can you put the
apply to
map
this
back up?
discussion, but I was wondering about a privacy berm that would separate that property and also what that storage area would be composed of. Right here, stockpile area. Excuse
Right.
me.
Mr. Alter, if you could quickly explain, in the last meeting, you did discuss that.
When a site is to be developed, the developer takes the topsoil that's on a site and preserves it to be used after the site is established. And typically what happens is that is placed in a stockpile area. It is protected from erosion. It is usually either seeded so that it has grass on it, or it has cocoa mats or other kinds of erosion control mats on it until it's stabilized. And then once the site is to be developed, that stockpile of topsoil is used to re-topsoil the site so that it can have a better chance of having appropriate growth. So that's a temporary area that would be used. Typically, it's, as in this plan, it's as far away from wetlands as you can get. It's in an area that can be protected and maintained. And when the site is developed, it goes away.
It goes away. And lastly, any kind of a barrier, like a trees or some kind of a barrier that would separate the residential Rhodes Landing area to the project.
So that would be an issue that would be raised at the time when we brought a development plan forward, where we know where driveways, parking lots, buildings are going to be exactly located. And then as part of a landscape plan, I've done other projects with Mr. Diadio. He has no problem creating a green row of some kind of evergreen trees typically that can act as a buffer between different kinds of uses. We've certainly done that on other projects.
Sure, thank you.
It's just not, this is not the plan to show that.
Thank you.
Mr. Alter, really quick question around that stockpile area, besides either seeding or covering in cocoa mats, hay bales, silt fence, anything like that to keep the erosion down?
John, is that a silt fence around the bottom of it?
That's correct. As you can see, the dotted line that we're highlighting here on our cursor will be silt fencing all the way along the property boundary to ensure that no silt or any traces encroaches upon the budding property gradient of us.
All right, thanks, John. Next on my list would be Ron Catania. If you have anything you'd like to speak.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me? Just let me know if you, my question probably will be deferred, but I'll ask it anyway. The large mulch pile and the stumps with the fill being put in, are the stumps going to be removed and the large pile of mulch, is that going to be removed?
So stumps are always removed. And typically towns do not want stumps buried. For the most part, Mr. Sopelek could speak to that, or Mr. Alvarado. And then ultimately, when the site is fully developed and stabilized, John Mills, the wood chip berm would then go away?
Yeah, if we could note to the plans, to the question, commissioners, the wood chip berm would be utilizing those on-site wood chips all the way around, especially where there's any risk of contaminations leading into the wetland. So it would reduce the need to bring in anything else and reuse the existing wood chips for the wood chip berm as part of the best practices for the soil erosion and sediment control. More so than just a silt fence alone.
Okay, appreciate it.
I had a question.
Mr. Chairman, we are very close in time here. We only have 3 minutes before we close this. We only have 4 minutes to feed. So if you want to recess the hearing, you know, unfortunately, we gotta do this. Otherwise, I need a. Unfortunately, we gotta
Have time
do
for
this.
a quick question.
Otherwise, I need a. Have time for quick question.
Can I ask a question? It's William Orlowski.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Hello?
who's speaking?
Oh. Yes, who's speaking?
William Orlowski.
All right, William, I hate to be quick, but 1 minute, one quick question.
I hate to be quick, but 1 minute, one quick.
Okay. Yes, I'm the abutting owner of, and I'm also president of the Rhodes Landing Association up on top. I think Mr. Catania just asked a question that I'd like to, just clarify again. Before the fill is brought in to this area, are all the stumps, et cetera, and debris going to be taken out of there before the fill comes in?
Peter Diadio, do you want to answer that? Peter Diadio, do you want to answer that?
Yes, this is Peter Diadio. So
this is Peter Diadio.
the first thing is we install the erosion and sediment control. The next thing and by doing that, we reduce the wood chip berm because it goes around the site. Second thing we do is remove the stumps and stockpile the topsoil. Sediment control goes around the stockpile of the topsoil, and the stumps are removed from site. Then we execute bringing in the fill. And so that's the sequence of events. And the answer is yes, the stumps will be removed and the wood chips will be utilized on site for our erosion and sediment control. And erosion controls will also go around the stockpiles as depicted in the plan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Diadio. All right, I need a motion to recess the public hearing until the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recess this public hearing for the commercial service realty permit until our March meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And with that, I'm going to ask that we motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So-
adjourn.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, and at this point, before I adjourn us, thank you to everyone. I'm terribly sorry that we